the roof's frame. An inside view from the southern side shows a green object that is most likely a fallen crane. This footage is the first of its kind to be released since the self-defense forces have been shooting aerial images of the plant. The SDF will continue filming to help confirm conditions at the plant. On Thursday, 3 workers at the plant were exposed to water containing unusually high levels of radioactive materials. The Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency said on Friday the water may have leaked from the number 3 reactor core.
When we look into the composition of the water, the source of the water seems to be the reactor core. Another possibility is the spent fuel, and we cannot rule out that possibility either, but I think it is more likely that the water came from the reactor core.
The 3 workers were exposed to the radiation in the flooded basement of the turbine building next to the number 3 reactor building. They were transferred to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences in Chiba Prefecture on Friday. 2 of them were exposed to beta and gamma ray radiation. Doctors say the radioactive substances reached inside their bodies, but they say so far the internal symptoms are not serious enough to require special treatment. They say the 2 will be receiving similar treatment as regular burns. Tokyo Electric Power Company says 3.9 million becquerels of radioactive substances per cubic centimeter were detected in the water the 3 workers were standing in. That reading is 10,000 times higher than levels in water inside an operating nuclear reactor. Efforts to cool the 4 reactor buildings continued on Friday. TEPCO says that in the number 1 and 3 reactors, workers switched from injecting seawater to fresh water to avoid corrosion. They're also planning to use fresh water at the number 2 reactor as soon as possible. TEPCO says a high level of radiation was found in water collected from the turbine building of the number 1 reactor. 3.8 million becquerels of radioactive substances were detected. The level of radiation is as high as the one collected from the number 3 reactor, where 3 workers were exposed to radiation. It's still unclear where the water has come from. Officials say they're looking into the source of the leakage. They say people at the number 1 reactor are working only in areas where there's no water. Officials also say they're going to collect water from reactors number 2 and 4 so they can check if there's been any damage to fuel rods. A large number of people are still missing in disaster-hit areas, but a series of problems at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant are obstructing some people's desperate efforts to search for their families and friends. We now have a report from Fukushima Prefecture.
45-year-old Norio Kimura is a self-employed businessman who lived in the town of Okuma. He's still trying to find out what happened to 3 members of his family. Kimura still doesn't know what became of his 77-year-old father, Wataru, his 37-year-old wife, Miyuki, and his youngest daughter, 7-year-old Yuna. Kimura says he only hopes they're alive and well. Kimura was at work in the neighboring town when the quake struck. He tried to make his way home to see that his family was safe, but it took till nightfall to reach the area. The Kimuras lived only 100 meters from the shoreline. Norio arrived to find his house and everything else washed away. He searched desperately for his wife, daughter, and father, but there wasn't any trace. He had to break off his search after trouble erupted at the nuclear power plant just 4 kilometers away. He and others in the area were told that they had to leave. Kimura says he's no longer able to search near the place where he lived. He says he's doing what he can to try and find out what has become of his loved ones. Kimura's eldest daughter and his mother survived and are now living with his wife's relatives in Okayama Prefecture. Kimura's sister-in-law, Mai, is helping with his search.